Most of us as car enthusiasts are always looking for ways to modify or improve our cars. Usually that could be for performance or cosmetics, but there's also modifications that you can do to increase the reliability of your car. That's what we'll be talking about today. 6 modifications on the new generation Saab 9.3 that can increase its reliability or prolong its life. Now, some of these will apply to all new Gen 9.3s, some of them will apply to just 2.0, some will apply to 2.8s. One important distinction I'd like to make before we start this list is that none of these items are maintenance related. They are actual mods that help prolong the life of the car. Now, of course, at the end of the day, staying up to date on your maintenance is going to be the number one thing to help keep your Saab or any car that you own on the road for as long as you can. Now, I have done videos discussing general performance modifications for these cars, so if you're interested in seeing that, you can check out the link in the top corner. I've also done a video discussing some budget modification options that you can also check out in the top corner. And with that out of the way, let's start with number 1. This particularly applies to the 2.0, the B207 engine, and that is either an ECU spacer kit or an ECU relocation. Now, as we all know, if you're an NG93 owner, the ECU is one of the most common failure points on the 2.0 engine. I've actually been seeing it a little bit more frequently on the 2.8 engine as well, the V6. However, it's still far and away a very common problem on this car. Now, there's a couple things you can do to help remedy that. Number 1 is you can obviously drive without an engine cover, help the ECU breathe better because it is bolted straight to the intake manifold, straight to the engine, a very hot area of the engine bay. Removing the engine cover helps air flow over it a little bit better and ideally keep it cooler, but that's not really a modification. I currently have a spacer kit on my car which essentially lifts the ECU up off the intake manifold and helps airflow underneath it. I'll link that video in the top corner. However, if you're feeling even more daring than that, the absolute best solution and modification you can do relating to this is actually relocating the ECU. Maptune sells a kit that relocates the ECU up onto the crash support bar, the upper radiator support, and that's ultimately the best solution. It's a relatively new kit and a fantastic idea. Second modification you can do to prolong the life of your Saab 9.3, and that is getting rid of the stupid plastic coolant tee that sits just above the alternator on the 4-cylinder models. It's sort of an intersection for coolant between the cylinder head, the radiator, and then also the feed line that runs back to the turbo. The little nipple that comes off of this, the smaller line that runs back to the turbo, always seems to snap off or just fail randomly with age. That happened to me on this car, and I replaced it with a metal coolant tee. I'll link that video up in the top corner. Saab Parts sells a fantastic kit I'd recommend buying that also comes with some new radiator hoses. If you're really in a pinch, people have even gone to like Home Depot or Lowe's and gotten a similar T fitting with similar dimensions to use temporarily. Another solution to this problem is getting rid of that whole T entirely and actually replacing it with one big silicone hose that connects all the way to the turbo as well as the cylinder head and the radiator. Number 3 is another plastic to metal mod, and this one particularly applies to the V6s, and that is a metal coolant tank. There are a couple of companies now that offer it. Genuine Saab, however, is the company that pioneered these. They've been selling them for as long as I can remember. They now have a version out that fits the 4-cylinder models. A lot of V6 owners switch to these because on the V6s, the coolant tanks are a common failure point because they sit right below the exhaust and they just fail over time. It not only helps spice up your engine bay to help it look nicer, but it also serves as a good part to upgrade to help make your car a little bit more reliable. We've talked a lot about coolant-related plastic items being upgraded, but let's talk about the coolant hoses themselves. Number 4 is upgrading the stock rubber hoses, whether it be radiator hoses, intake hoses, etc., with silicone variants. DO88, who's based in Sweden, sells a wide variety of products for these cars. I have a lot of them on this car, as I did on my Turbo X. I'll link the video in the top corner where I actually installed their full radiator hose kit or coolant hose kit on my Turbo X. I also have their full kit on my 900. Great upgrade, especially as these rubber hoses tend to age. The silicone is just going to be more durable, better. This also applies for the air intake hoses. There's certain hoses on these cars that like to crack, so replacing them with silicone is also going to be sturdier, but they're going to be a lot more durable and help improve your reliability as well. Number 5, another silicone related item, and that is vacuum lines. As these cars age, again, all these plastic parts just tend to age. They become brittle from all the heat cycles, and they can break. One fantastic upgrade example of that is a kit that Saab Parts sells for an upgraded silicone vacuum line for the 2.0 engine, the B207. The part number for that kit is 999386. It's on their website. It not only is flexible, which is fantastic, makes install and removal way easier, but because it's the silicone, it's flexible, it's just new material, it's going to be a lot more durable and hold up much better over time than all these hard plastic lines that like to snap right at the check valve or just get leaks over time. The last one I have for you guys today, number 6, is an upgraded intake timing guide from ZZP. ZZP is a huge aftermarket supplier for Ecotech parts. Ecotech, of course, being the B207 2.0 turbo engine that is in most of the new generation Saab 9.3s. One of the common faults on these cars as they age is if they haven't had any timing chain or balance chain work done, the intake timing guide is known for failing. And when that fails, can not only cause a lot of rattling, and if it gets bad enough, cause catastrophic damage. And so ZZP came up with a much beefed up version of that. I recently did the timing and balance chain and water pump in my 2.0. I'll link that video in the top corner. Highly recommend watching it. Some fantastic preventative maintenance, and in this case, also a modification that is going to give me peace of mind for the rest of the life of this car, that I'm not going to have to worry about that timing chain. Knock on wood. So that is a fantastic upgrade you can do to your car as well. That's all I could think of. I searched for hours thinking of a list of modifications for this because it seems to be a question that I'm getting asked more and more. So if you have any suggestions to add to this for both the 2.0 and the 2.8, please let me know down below in the comments. I'd love to hear your additional suggestions. Like I mentioned earlier, removing your engine cover can help, for example, but that's not really a modification. So any suggestions are welcome. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing already. Check out my merchandise linked at the top of the description. I'm getting so close to 100,000 subscribers, guys. Thank you all so much for your continued support. I'll see you in the next one.